Well, good morning, everyone. I brought almond milk. Wash down those tasty donuts. Um, hello, sorry, creatives, community, kind folks out there. Welcome to RPG with DBJ. Today is Third Pillar Thursday, and we are still talking about mountains because we like to bring up a subject and talk about it all week. I have to do this preamble because some people can still be a little confused by it. Third Pillar Thursday. What the hell is that? All right. The third pillar of tabletop gaming is about exploration, with the first and second pillar being combat and social interactions, respectively. How do I describe the third pillar of gaming, the pillar of exploration? Well, I kind of take a bit of a narrow focus and think about it as the landscape. It's where all the stunt work is done. It's where all the action happens. It is why I am a contributing writer to Critical Hit Publishing, and the books that are written are called Cinematic Environs, both including the cinematic part of it, the tension driven, the scenes from your favorite movies and TVs and your books and stuff. It's just for me, it's all about like the stunts and the action and the drama that happens there. And then, of course, there are environments. To basically make it short and sweet, if you are familiar with Dungeons and Dragons 5th edition, they have things known as traps and lairs and hazards and obstacles and puzzles and all that good stuff. And it's combining all of that together and then using that as like a triangle, three pillars, whatever, and making a very, basically a tool that you can use as a game master, dungeon master to bring another element to your game that I feel is, yes, I'm going to use the word again, underserved. All right, so we've been talking about mountains this entire time, and yes, I inadvertently have to keep referring back to the environment in terms of using mountains, but today I get to go off. All right, so for rules sake, think of the environment like a very organic trap or lair or obstacle or something in the way, and using that sporadically. Of course, I'm not advocating that every single scene. Morning drinking, huh? Hey, Rickard. Oh, Fat Ninja DM. Yeah, you and we're gonna hook up with Fantasy Grounds College very, very soon. Morning drinking, like, oh yes, little martini today. Oh. So essentially it is the environment is like the thing that is independent of the player characters. And oh man. Midsummer is here, y'all, or well, tomorrow, but still. Oh, okay. So I feel like Lairs in 5th edition were tied too directly to the creatures that they're associated with. And my contention is that the idea of a lair should be separated. That is not under the air quote control of some sort of creature, that it happens independently, either for the benefit of those native creatures and peoples that live there, or to the detriment of both the adversaries and the PCs. And of course, the environment should be used and abused by all, for whatever reason. If the players come up with great ideas, you just give them a slow clap and oh wow, I didn't even think about that. Use it. So anyway, we've talked about world building and talked about creatures and things, but here in the environmental section, of course, when it comes to mountains, we like to I think that the two big things are cliff climbing and rock slides. And not saying that both of those are not there, but I believe that we can get a little bit more nuance to it. So one of the the facts of mountains are the mountain itself, the physical structure of the mountain, the stone, the thing that's beneath your feet, of course, if you're walking. And then it's combined with the aerial elements to that. Clouds, winds, storms, and that kind of thing. And mixing the two together is, I think, where you're going to get a lot of your drama. And lastly, and this doesn't just apply to mountains, but it applies to using the environment in itself. It's something that's very indicative of the environment and is one of the best tools you can have in your back pocket, and that's foreshadowing. Rickard says clouds. Clouds would be super terrible when you're trying to navigate a narrow ledge as they roll in and you don't see shit. Absolutely. And like the thing about foreshadowing, because I'm going to talk about these clouds in a minute, about foreshadowing is that both as a literary tool and a game master's tool, and for your gaming experience, foreshadowing can be psychological, it can be dreamlike, it can be messages sent from afar. But for us normal humans, foreshadowing is looking up in the sky and going, whoa, maybe we should go backwards. And you're sitting there on a rope bridge or something, or you're navigating a narrow ledge or whatever, and then it's like 300 feet or what have you, or metric measurement, and 100-yard distance, you're in the middle and you're like, do I go back? Do I go forward or whatnot? So what do I mean by foreshadowing? Foreshadowing is setting up the potential that something else may happen in the future and people get to see it. So you're in high mountains. You talk about, for example, you can start with something as simple as, guys, you've made a hard trek up to this level. Below you, you see the last vestigial elements of the forest that you've just come through. Even now, this early in the morning, as you're packing your tent and other supplies, a cold air is moving in. You look up in the sky, and the clouds are almost like are rolling like boiling water, and there's a dark edge to them. Even on the edge of your skin, you feel something. Is that ozone? Is that electricity? Maybe it's just your imagination, but you do feel like storms are about to roll in. And, something like that, like right just off the top of my head, like just describe the place that they are at as if there is something more to it. Clouds rolling in, storm clouds. Many people, you stand on a high ledge or open plain or something, you look out, or people will sniff the air and go, yeah, I feel like it's going to rain, or there's been a heavy rain last night and it starts to get a little bit humid or something, or it's cold and someone's like, you know what, we're probably going to get fog in the morning. And of course, those people with survival skills, nature skills, outside, those who are outdoors persons would definitely know that, yeah, you know what, guys, probably the next couple of days a storm's going to come in. We really need to get moving. And therefore, if you as the game master, you're getting to a point where it's like, nah, it's not really exciting. I really want to add some extra element in. Once you include let's get to Rickard's part about clouds, would be terrible when you're trying to navigate in a narrow ledge. Once you insert it, the players already know it's going to happen. You've already predicted it. You've already set up the situation, as opposed to, say, a dungeon with pit traps in it and trying to catch the players off guard and going, hey, you fell in a pit trap. That's like DM versus player kind of stuff. But when you're foreshadowing something and the players still press on, then hey, that's their decision. All right, so let's talk about some of these aerial things. Clouds. Well, fog technically are basically clouds on the ground. So if you're traveling up into the mountains, you're kind of going towards where the clouds live, big pockets of moisture and such. So fog itself can be very static. So the first element using the environment is like static effects. Static effect. Once you're in this particular region, X thing happens. So fog may, there's in 5th edition, there's light obscurement and heavy obscurement. So you can have light fog and heavy fog. So maybe the light fog's just, some reduction, disadvantage on like maybe perception and noticing things. Maybe there's a range to it. So maybe within 30-foot distance, you're okay. Anything beyond that, maybe you're applying disadvantage to targeting with some ranged attacks or whatnot. And of course, you lay that out. You could even meta game it like, hey guys, there's fog moving in. It's light fog now. You're going to have Mr. Archer and Wizard trying to fire at your enemies very far away. You're going to have to be at a disadvantage. Once some heavy fog starts moving in, then you can really start ramping up that tension. Maybe beyond that 30-foot distance, things are invisible, which is the part of the rules. You can't see them beyond a certain distance. And especially if anyone who's been in a region where there's a lot of heavy fog, Central Ohio, we get ourselves a period of time where we get some heavy fog. When you illuminate your region, it creates like a light dome where it's harder for you to pierce beyond the illumination, and it actually makes things beyond the light distance harder to see. Kind of like when you go camping in the dark, right? When you turn the lights out, your eyes start to adjust to the darkness, but once you get some illumination, like a campfire, beyond the illumination dome, it's harder to see things beyond that. Yeah. Rico says, I've been in a big bus that had to navigate narrow roads when clouds rolled in. Ooh, you could see maybe 2 meters surrounding the bus. Beyond that, white. Exactly. And this is a tool, again, I'm going to use the word underserved, because let's say you as a game master, you want to have them attacked by bandits, right? The traditional Cabbage Patch bandits, right? They just grow out of the ground, and you water them and cultivate them, and yes, there's more bandits. Anyway, so you got your bandits, your hobgoblin horde, whatever the case may be. The fact of the matter is, with that situation, do you just say, oh, there's 13 of them, or do you say 3 walk out of the thick fog? You hear other voices, but you don't know how many are out there. And that, I think, is a tool that you can use. It's the lack of the knowledge, it's the lack of the perception that you can play with. And again, dark vision, from my understanding, and how I would play it, doesn't work through fog. Dark vision is for low light conditions. If it's nighttime outside or you're in a cave, you can see, but fog are actually particulates in the air. So no, dark vision wouldn't work. Now, players may say, well, can I use a gust of wind spell or prestidigitation or something? And my answer to that would be, yeah, why wouldn't you be able to do that? Why wouldn't you be able to, I don't know, there's a magic item that's like a bag with like wind in it or something, or what have you, or any number of things. Maybe one of the players is like, look, I'm the archer dude. I have my ranged attacks. This isn't working for me. I'm going to go sneak back into the cave, and hopefully the enemies will come around the corner into the cave, and then I'm going to use that to my advantage. And again, the answer would be yes. Let the players use and abuse the environment, and the enemies themselves as well, especially if they're able to navigate extremely well in this environment. If they're adapted to it, the creatures are adapted to it, especially ones that operate with like, I believe in the game it's like blind sight, but you could rename it like sonar or tremor sense. They, navigate by vibrations in the ground. They navigate through scent. Lots of predatory animals, detect blood and scent and track that way. And maybe they just don't use their eyes too much. Bats are another thing. Bats and fog have zero interaction. All they do is use their screeching sounds and hear the reflections off of the environment, so they wouldn't be affected by it either. So you can really play with that. Now you can maybe you might want to get too far into the weeds with it, but again, and we're just talking fog. Okay, you're climbing along some ledges or some rope bridges or stone that has fallen across, huge deep crevices, and the players are trying to balance their way across, and then all of a sudden thick fog rolls in, enemies start to attack them. Using all at the same time, I think, is a great way to ramp up that danger. Now, of course, with our aerial elements, we've got ourselves like winds. Maybe you of course we're foreshadowing again. Maybe you have yourself, just a brisk wind is coming by again with the players can see, but maybe you apply disadvantage to like ranged attacks or something just because of the high wind nature. And again, with the environment acting independently, if the creatures are not adapted to it, they have the same penalties. And so maybe, for example, the bandits kidnapped the princess or maybe the prince, and captured the royal family, and are taking them up into the mountains and want to get them through that mountain pass. They too may be limited by the heavy fog, the cold weather, the winds and such. And maybe the PCs, maybe one or more of the PCs are like, oh, I can take advantage of this. Yes. And so, of course, they're not adapted to it, and the PCs take advantage and they look like badasses. Let it happen. But maybe there are other beings that live in the mountains. Maybe those stone giants are very adapted to the region, or you've created yourself snow-based manticores or something that live out there, white tigers and whatnot, traveling up in the mountains, or dire goats or what have you, and they're completely adapted to it. And yeah, when you hear the clop of hooves coming towards you and you can't see what it is, and you're standing on a narrow stone ledge, and then all of a sudden out of the distance, piercing through the fog as it swirls around their head, this giant goat comes and rams you in the chest, that would be pretty nasty. Rickard says, speaking of wind, fissure winds, example, a ledge with some narrow fissures across them, and the wind funnels through them from time to time, which could blow someone off the ledge. Yes, winds are not necessarily cloud-based or storm-based. Sometimes, and remember, we even feel this in cities. There's even buildings where you're in a man-made environment, and just for whatever reason, like you said, wind fissures, man, just cracks in the rock, or just for some reason the shape of the environment just seems to funnel winds to a particular location, funneling it down and making them stronger as the air passes through. Much like how even in woodland areas, sometimes you'll hear the winds blow through the trees, and it almost feels like it's gathering energy as it focuses down, almost like how jet engines use ram air, where they focus the air down into a narrower and narrower pass, and it goes faster and moves stronger. And so absolutely a wind fissure makes perfect sense in a mountainous region. And once again, it's the foreshadowing. Are the players familiar with this region? Maybe the dwarven character knows about this area, or the druid or the ranger is familiar with this part. And sure, they may be going into some danger, but they're like, you guys, we're going to have to be careful. The winds are, you as the game master, dungeon master, explaining this to your players so that player can explain it to their party members that, yeah, you're going to need to be careful, because the high winds don't necessarily need to move in a horizontal manner. They don't need to move east to west. They could blow up, down, swirl, whirlwinds, and all kinds of things based on how the air flows against the stone. So it's possible that the players may have to jump across a fissure in the ground, but the air is actually lifting upwards, and maybe there's some foreshadowing with birds. If you've ever seen seagulls purposefully use headwinds, so it looks like they're hovering, by equalizing their forward movement with the motion of the wind against their wings. So they just hover during the updrafts. And so your giant eagles, your rocks, your griffins, your pegasi might be using these updrafts, and that could give a clue to the players like, we come past this area, beware, the gnome may get lifted up into the air by an errant wind gust or something. Dead Man the Storyteller says most skyscrapers have a massive wind vortex running up their sides. As a matter of fact, yes, they do. There are, if you go in some of the tallest skyscrapers, you actually feel them swaying. And one of the problems with designing skyscrapers is that people who build the men who and women who go up very tall skyscrapers before they are finished actually have to be careful of wind vortexes when they build these 100 story plus skyscrapers, because the weathered systems are actually different 50 stories, 100 stories plus than above the ground. So yes, they very much do have vortexes that flow up and down the sides of the buildings. Unfortunately, it's why jumping off the side of a skyscraper does not have you land exactly. If you jumped 3 feet off the side of a skyscraper, you will not land on the ground exactly 3 feet away. Depending on the height, the wind will actually carry you around, much like a base jumper. So yeah, players could actually fall off of a cliff and then be carried by the wind, or even uplifted by the wind and taken to some other random location other than the ledge below them, which could have some humorous and dark elements to it, especially if a player falls into into the heavy fog and you don't see them, and then no one hears them hit anything, and you're just like, oh no. Although that player could have gotten sucked into a tunnel or blown to a ledge that's further away from them. Ricker says could also make it a sulfuric gas if it's a volcanic region. Yes, gases. We don't have to limit ourselves to breathable gases. Like you said, sulfuric gases, flammable gases are possible if it's volcanic. So not only are the players worried about winds, but it could be breathing elements, or even, hey guys, please don't light a fire or bring out a flint or something, because one little spark, that shocking grasp spell you love so much, please don't use that, because you might just light us all on fire. Although someone might say, hey, everybody make a run for it. I'm going to set off. I'm actually going to lead the enemy towards this sulfuric gas and then light it on fire. Again, players come up with great ideas, and using an abusing environment, slow clap. Great thing. Ricker says, speaking of volcanic region, acid waterfall, rivers, lakes. Yes, absolutely. And plug, we got a book about that one too. We called it Blasted Lands. But of course, if it's volcanic, who's to say that there isn't very thin rock that the players are maybe going across, that it could break through and someone's foot falls through, or a very large enemy like a big ogre or stone giant walks towards the players and their foot breaks through these acid streams. Could be flowing lava coming down a volcanic mountain. And of course, when you're mixing tall mountains and volcanoes, you're going to have yourself like burning elements and then frozen elements as well, such as who's to say there aren't geysers of releasing the tension, as was mentioned by Caius before, where a city is on a plain, but over the years the mountain has lifted up and lifted the community into the air. It's possible that the geological formation of the mountain is still active, and so you could have yourself little earth tremors, again with the rock slides and mudslides. Now rock slides, of course you can absolutely positively reskin some of your traps, right? Same thing with the pit trap idea in terms of falling through. And of course they're walking across thin rock, someone breaks through the rock, they could fall into an empty space, they could fall into a tight suffering less damage from the fall, but getting jammed between rock. They could fall into an acid lake. They could open up a pocket of gas. They could fall through an aquifer where water or icy water starts to flow out and such. And again, mixing that with some of our aerial elements where you have frozen rain, blizzards and snow, high winds enough that the players need to like lash themselves down to the rock, or they get lifted into the air. Maybe having some of the winds have certain effects on some of their abilities. So if someone wants to set up like a wall of fire, maybe the wind, mitigates that down, i.e. anyone in this blizzard cold or something has resistance to fire because it's the cold winds and the torrential rains are just going to put all that stuff out. Again, layering. I am not advocating doing all of this all at the same time at all. That's very complicated, and I understand that using the environment the way I'm describing it is probably it can be an atrophied muscle. It's like, well, that adds more complication because I've heard that before. Well, you're just adding things more complicated, and my feeling is it's no more complicated than removing one or two creatures from a combat, right? So instead of 6 ogres and 13 hobgoblins, maybe there's 10 hobgoblins, an ogre in the middle of a blizzard on a narrow ledge, right? It's like if it's easy enough for you to control a stat block, it's just as easy to control the environment. So, all right. So you have yourself some static effects. A static effect is go into region. Region has this effect on everyone. Okay. Fog. Go into region. Oh, you have disadvantage on perception and ranged attacks or something. But sometimes we need to have a random element, a random rock slide, random bolt of lightning from the sky, random gust of wind, randomly. Sometimes people are randomly targeted. Now you can do you can pick a randomizer. Okay, everyone roll a D4 or a D6, and if you roll a 1, you will be a target at this moment. Let's say it's a volcanic region. You guys were talking about that. So volcano is erupting, launching molten rock, or there's a rock slide, or a bolt of lightning struck the top of the mountain and rocks are falling downhill. So randomly at the beginning of each round, if everyone, adversaries, NPCs, get them all to roll a die, if they roll a 1, guess what? You're going to be a target and you're going to have to move. You're going to have to make a saving throw or make an acrobatics check or athletics check or whatever mechanism you want for them to move out the way. You may even say, hey guys, if you don't move, you're going to get hit. So you're going to have to take a move action. And maybe the paladin is like, whoa, wait a minute, or the barbarian's like, I was about to get my last hit on this ogre, but I see the rocks tumbling down. I'm going to get my rear end out of there and hope the ogre doesn't move or something. Or the bard is like, you know what? Since I know there's a rock slide and the enemy's coming towards me, is it possible I could kind of like trick them to turn their backs to it and then they get hit and I don't get hit and all that kind of bit? Yeah, hell yeah. Yeah. But something that we use is something that we just simply call even the odds, and pick up any die and roll it. And what you want is you want an even result versus an odd result. You want to even the odds that you will not be targeted randomly by some random effect, whether it's a bolt of lightning or a geyser of flame or walking across thin ice and it suddenly breaks underneath your feet, or navigating very narrow stone pillars that might tumble at a mere touch, or being hit by icicles that are going to fall down on top of your head or whatnot. Rickard says random bolt of lightning from the sky causing a random rock slide, which in turn causes natural gas to escape. You're so brutal, dude. Yes, absolutely. I absolutely if you foreshadow it, that could kind of make sense. Although if this is your first time and you're springing this on your PCs, I think they're going to be kind of pissed off at you. But again, using the environment, like I said, you can design a dungeon with 37 pit traps and your players will get pissed off at you, give you the middle finger and call you an a-hole, and they would be right. But navigating like your mountainous region, how many rock slides could happen? Daily basis, every other day for the next 3 weeks, every round that the unstable ground is happening after an earthquake. I mean, you're not going to run out of the environment, whether it's natural or man-made. And again, that's a tool we can put in our back pocket. We want to add, oh, you know what? I did tell them that a storm was coming in. Wouldn't it be cool if it's just like an electrical storm and they're fighting this enemy on the top of the mountainside and you never know what's going to happen? Of course. Ricker says, fine. All right, the random bolt of lightning comes from a random blizzard. Actually, That's an actual thing. Not snowstorms. Oh wow. Uh, e- Electrical storms during a blizzard are a real thing. Thunder blizzards. Thunder snow is a thing. Yeah, it's a real thing. Doesn't happen too often, but thunder snow is a real thing. So sure, you could spring that on them as well. Dead Man, the storyteller, says a rock slide in the Flint Mountains that release a natural gas pocket, and I absolutely agree with you, especially if you've already told your players, like, yeah, this region, this dormant volcano, the more rock slides that happen, the more the pressure is trying to escape it, and the PCs are trying to get the ring to Moria, and these are the elements that they encounter. Of course. So, and mind you, since we're turning the volume up to 11, you can play with the kinds of things that happened. Are they bolts of electricity or bolts of necrotic energy? Is it natural gas, or are they hallucinogenic gases, or sleeping gases or something? Sure, of course you can do that. Yeah, Ricker says, so now we have blizzard plus lightning plus rock slide plus gas equals what the hell, DM? Exactly. Sure, could you take this a little too far? Yeah, you could take it a little too far. But again, here we have ourselves blizzards and lightning and rock slides and gas and falling heights and mudslides and fog and high winds and thin air and the whole 9 yards. And we really haven't talked about too many adversaries, right? It's not the bugbear. It's the bugbear or the Yeti in white hiding attacking the party during a blizzard while they're navigating a narrow ledge, right? It's not the giant eagle. It's the giant eagle attacking the players during high winds while the players are lashed to ropes while they're trying to ascend another ledge up the mountainside. It's using the environment. It's not the sword fight between two mortal enemies. It's the sword fight between two mortal enemies on a rope bridge, where there are enemies and adversaries flying underneath and over top of the bridge while it's set on fire or something, right? It's the backdrop. It's the fighting on the wing of a plane. It's the fighting on a frozen lake and having it crack underneath someone's foot, and seeing the cracks just explode across the lake, and everyone's like kind of like looking down at their feet and looking at their enemies and like, it's, to me, I feel like, just because I'm a very cinematic visual individual, to me, that I think that's where the drama comes in, and that's why I'm a big proponent of it, and which is why I'm a self-appointed third pillarist. I've made myself in that position, and I'm waiting for someone to dethrone me. Ricker says, what if you take the fissure wind idea but make it triggered by bugbear horns that they have connected to the fissure network? Why not? Who's to say that the people who live, going back to our world building, are not using or creating or modifying what already exists in this place? So, for example, maybe there's like war horns, and the players are like, oh man, the goblinoid hordes, they're blowing their horns. We've got to go up into the mountains and go take care of them. Rickard action, layer action, horn blower. Yes. The simple answer, yes. The next answer was be like, hell yeah. Who's to say that there isn't the bugbears are creating something that's this high wind? Maybe it's deafening. Maybe the horns have other effects, right? So the horn blowers are causing rock slides. The horn blowers are causing like a thunder wave where everyone's deafened. The horn blowers are causing avalanches. The horn blowers are causing high winds. And sure, the players could ignore it, and every round or every couple of rounds or whatever, or maybe you just roll a D4, like in the ICRPG created by Runehammer, just roll a D4 and leave it in front of the players. And when that round comes up, or that action comes up, something happens. Then maybe here's where effectiveness supersedes damage. potential. So let's say there's one PC, your paladin can just like one shot just about every creature that they hit. The other players are having a little hard time. You're going to have a player who's like, man, my character sucks because I can't dish out as much damage as the paladin, right? But effectiveness is something different. The paladin maybe can one shot every single ogre or troll or whatever that's coming attacking them in this mountain valley. But if a smart PC sneaks into where the bugbear hornblowers are at and takes them out, that's been causing all of this harm, they become more effective in stopping the harm that's happening to everyone, as opposed to the paladin who's standing out in the open, one-shotting all of the bad guys, right? So again, this allows, with using the environment, you can really shift the spotlight around. So maybe the archer guy is always, one-shotting every creature from afar, and the guy with the sword is just like rolling their eyes like, okay, I guess I'm just not going to be able to get my sword bloodied because somebody's always shooting over my shoulder, killing everything, until the fog rolls in. Then all of a sudden, the person with the arrows is like, I'm going to need some help. I'm standing behind the guy with the sword who sees something running out of the thick fog and doesn't, no one knows exactly how many things are out there, and basically starts swinging for the fences every time, yet one more ogre pokes his head out of the fog towards the players. So again, this allows you to shift the spotlight around. Rickard says lair action, stalactites, if they fight in a mountain cave. Of course. Also we can change. Let's change up even something as simple as a rock slide, for example. Maybe they're just small little boulders and you reskin yourself like a grease spell. So it's very difficult to stay on this angled, everything doesn't have to be a sheer mountain climb. Sometimes, like if you've ever been a kid and you go out into the woods or something and you climb up like a steep incline, it could be, Rickard says reskinning a sand dune. The exact same thing, dude. Sand dune, mud, a algae covered surface on the banks of a river, slick stones. You're on a coastline and there's heavy waves are rolling in, and every time the heavy waves roll in, it's very difficult to hold on to the rocks and climb up to a higher elevation, i.e. reskinning yourself some like a grease spell. Maybe the waves of small pebbles makes it slick and hard to hold on to unless you stay still. But then the bigger boulders are like, your reskin trap and your stones are rolling down. And maybe it gets even worse when the stones are the size of tons. They're the size of minibuses and stuff and automobiles, right? Then you're starting to talk something a little bit lethal. Like, yeah, if you don't make your deck save, you're probably going to take 10d10 damage or something of that nature, right? Like ramping up that lethality might be something, again, foreshadowing and using the idea of escalation, which I didn't kind of bring up, but you guys kind of brought in with the blizzard plus the lightning plus the rock slide plus the gas. There could be an escalation element to it where if the PCs aren't smart or not picking up on what's come before them, that these things start stacking one on another. Okay. Oh no, there's fissures with natural gas coming out of this dormant volcano. Oh, then there's rock slides, and oh, the fog is moving in. Oh, is that a blizzard about to happen? And if they don't lowercase navigate this region, or maybe even just play a little smarter and start using some of these things to their benefit, maybe these things start stacking on top of each other. So yes, absolutely reskinning some of these effects. And of course, you don't need to make them magical. Like it's not a real grease spell for a sand dune, right? It's not a real grease spell for, slick and, saltwater covered or algae covered rock. It's not a real grease spell when the waves of pebbles start rolling down the sides of this angled hill. It's just a natural event. You can't dispel magic it. You can't anti-magic it. It's just a real thing. And for those creatures who are not adapted to the region, Maybe a PC is like, oh, I'm going to use my shove maneuver. The shove maneuver that people say is stupid because once you knock a creature prone, they just get up on their own turn and it's done. Well, maybe not. If you kick someone in the chest and then they fall back on the rock slide, and then the rock slide carries them down 60 feet away from you, maybe that might be far more effective than simply trying to one-shot them with an arrow, right? Again, it's about effectiveness, not damage dealing, and allows you to move the spotlight and give your players far more options than only rewarding those who do damage, right? This has nothing to do with hit points. A 300 hit point, giant that starts slipping and sliding on a rock slide and falls down into a deep crevice is far more effective than trying to hit it 3 times before it dies, right? Rickard says, we mentioned blizzard, but you could also have a proper ice storm. Again, patting ourselves on the back when we wrote these books. We didn't limit ourselves for, like, we're talking about mountains, we talked about volcanoes and Arctic region. We didn't just limit ourselves to things like simple blizzards, simple electrical storms. Like sometimes Rickard is mentioning a proper ice storm versus a blizzard, and they are 2 separate things. So a blizzard is like blinding with the snow coming, almost falling horizontal. Your vision distance is sometimes only as far as the length of your hand. It sometimes is brutally cold. But an ice storm, they aren't snowflakes. It's more like frozen water just falling from the sky and coats everything in ice. The minute it hits the ground, it just starts coating everything in ice. So literally, if you go out in it, sometimes your own raincoat, your boots, your gloves start getting coated in ice. And imagine slick rock being coated in ice, and the PC still have to travel. Yeah, no. Yes. Yes and no. Meaning we've got to press forward, but oh man, would that be really tough trying to navigate these super high regions. And of course, I mentioned thin air. When you have storms and such, maybe this affects short and long rests because there may be no proper place or location to get a proper 8 hours of complete comfortable rest, especially if there's loud noises and sounds and thunderstorms and cold weather and high winds and lack of food and lack of shelter. All these things add together. Now, Rickard said, "We'll say to you, because I'm going to put myself in this position, that there will be players who, as I've said before, maybe I'm using the improper terminology because it sounds like I hate it, but that's not really the case. But it's the easy button abilities, right? It's the Outlander that can find food and water. It's the Leomund's tiny hut that completely protects the party. It's the create food and water spell and the good berries and stuff, where this again allows that player to shine in a moment where if they didn't have that ability, they'd probably be dead. Because even in our own world, we know people who've gone up into mountains and gotten trapped and needed to be rescued. Professional mountain climbers and professionals who live in these regions. As a matter of fact, there's plenty of Discovery Channel, History Channel television show, documentaries about man versus wild. What's the one? Naked Survival and all these other kind of things. It's Bear Grylls and his survival series, multiple numbers of Survivor series, where people go out into the wilds and encounter so many different difficulties. I think that we underserve ourselves. I think I used that like 5 times already. We underserve ourselves by not applying at least a little bit of this in our role-playing games, because I always think naked and afraid. There it is. There it is, dead man. Yep, naked and afraid. Sure, your PCs might not want to be naked, but if they want to go up in the mountains bucket naked, then that's their own fault, right? Yes, but the Naked and Afraid series, of course. I know part of it is just like, wanting to watch naked people walk around, but whatever. Again, I feel like when someone says you have to go to the far off dungeon to defeat the far off, BBEG in the land that no one has been able to survive. It kind of behooves us to say, well, if it's so harsh to transverse that location, why is it that it's easy to get there? Right? When you arrive in front of the front door of the dungeon, why wouldn't the PCs be beat the hell up before they get there? And this might be the reason that we're just not using the environment to do so. Of course, you can have your daily effects, for example, gaining exhaustion. And in our own books, we actually have a despair mechanic that operates the same way exhaustion does, but for the mind. For those who don't know, you work a 60-hour week, work an 18-hour shift, have a number of errands and not enough time. And believe you me, someone who hasn't eaten their lunch and you're hungry a little bit, sometimes it's not physical exhaustion, lack of sleep. It's the mental exhaustion that happens when people are physically under pressure, their mind starts to crack just a little bit. We all go through this sometimes on a daily and or weekly basis. The bosses that are pulling you in 15 different directions and want you to complete these different projects, and you have to take your work home with you, and you have to, be at work another 2.5 to 3 hours, and you're always on your phone, and you get home, you're on the computer, and your family's, telling you, reminding you, yes, you made a promise that you would do this thing on this weekend, and you're rolling your eyes, and you're like, oh man, I forgot, because now I need to do this other thing, and then boom, psychological exhaustion, despair. So we have a despair mechanic where it operates the same way, where your brain starts to get exhausted just a little bit at a time, just a little bit more, until you just go into a catatonic state where you get numb, you just don't even care. Which are some of those elements, like numb, confused, forgetful, hallucinations, catatonia, all those kind of things. So yeah, they're in there too. Rickard says, quote, you arrive at the Dungeon of Doom at the mountain's peak. As you look around, you find a secret staircase leading to the bottom of the mountain, offering travelers protection from the elements. Yeah, you know what? Why not? Why not have the well, I both believe that is a great descriptor, and both kind of a little bit of tongue in cheek, as well as the players maybe discover or find, or maybe they struggle enough that they need that survival. They need a place of protection. And maybe once they get to the Dungeon of Doom, they find out that wait a minute, you mean there was a back way to get here? Wait, we went through all that hassle and you could just summon some giant eagles to take us home, you son of a anyway. I'm being silly, but that is the case, right? Now I'm going to bring up the thing that happens so often, and why so many people do not like to add in traps and puzzles and things in their game. It's the PCs that are able to circumvent all of your hazards. It's I have this great adventure about this mountain, and they're going to have to struggle their way up the mountain. And wait, what? You're going to summon 7 giant eagles to take everyone up to the top of the mountain? Yeah. You just face palm yourself oh, I can't believe, they're going to dodge everything. Again, you got to give yourself a slow clap for your players. Fine. Great. So you're going to get past all the blizzards, and well, maybe not get past all the blizzards, but you get what I'm saying. Getting past having to take the 3-week trek to get to the top of the mountain. Instead, they're going to do it in a couple of hours and it'll be done. But it's the environment. You're not going to run out of it. It's not like you put all this prep into making this dungeon with 37 pit traps, and one of the players is like, well, I'm just going to give everybody levitation and we're just going to levitate our way through the dungeon. You're not going to run out of it. There's not going to be a lack of snow. There's not going to be a lack of wind or lack of mountains. You're not going to run out of swamps or volcanoes or ocean. Or heat or summer. You're not going to run out of spring. these are things that you can always pull out of your back pocket and go, oh, wait a minute, winter's coming in. Oh, I'm gonna throw a blizzard in there. I'm gonna foreshadow a storm. I'm gonna foreshadow, cold temperatures and frozen fingers. Now, let's get into some a little bit of nuance here. And some people will balk at this idea as well. I know I've had done some videos and some players are pretty much giving me the middle finger, although I'm going to assume they were thumbs up. The middle finger of things like, for example, when traveling in the mountains and other areas, your hands. What are you doing with your hands when you're scaling ropes or free climbing and rock climbing with your hands and such? How do you both climb a rope, hold out your I don't know, religious symbol, grab some material components, and ready your bow and arrow? Like, okay, what are we? Okay, so you have your sword in your hand. Okay, I get that. You're holding onto the rope. Okay, I get that. And you're holding onto your arcane focus. Is like, are you holding that in your butt cheeks? I suppose if you're playing, what is it, a loxodon, you could hold one of those, like your arcane focus in your elephant trunk. Or if you are a tentacled creature, maybe you could hold some of these other things. But yeah, you could, the idea that your hands are occupied is something that you can just pull on. What if it's cold? Is there a chance that you could fail a con save and your fingers get frostbitten and they're just super cold and you can't hold on to something? Does that mean that you can't cast a somatic spell? That this kind of talk is going to get me ostracized in the RPG community. I get that. But the thing is that you could pull on those threads, on those little threads. Like, okay, I get that you're climbing, but you're casting your spell while also holding up your magic item as well as your crossbow. Okay. Rickard says that's when you have flesh-eating moss hanging from the dungeon ceiling. Yeah, of course you have to have the flesh-eating moss hanging from the dungeon ceiling. Yeah, with the blizzards and so flying past all your hazards and stuff. Tesla Ranger says, or you just pull a Doctor Strange and create extra arms. Yeah. That now that's where you kind of go like, all right, how about, well, why can't my mage hand grab my arcane focus while I do this other thing? And you as a DM, you're like, all right. Yeah. Okay. So, but believe you me, you can circumvent some of these things too. So I'm being facetious in the sense that it's like creating problems, but not creating the solutions, and then letting your players come up with the solution, I think is probably your best bet. And that's kind of my whole mission, right? It's not how can I nerf some players so that they never have fun? That's not my intention. My intention is, well, like the fog idea, right? Yes, your character is the sharpshooter, right? Whatever the case may be. You've got your crossbow, you've got your arrows or whatever. You're the long range guy. And it's cool that you're the long range guy, but every once in a while, somebody else has got to step forward. Every once in a while, you're going to have some trouble. Every once in a while, yeah, you're going to be in a situation where you might have to rethink what you're doing to let somebody else take the spotlight, or at least let somebody else step forward to make you more effective. And that's where people work together. Oh, I'm the wizard. I'm going to use a gust of wind spell to get rid of this fog so the sharpshooter can start taking out these trolls that are coming down from the mountain, climbing down from the mountainside, right? It's that kind of thing. Rickard says, but hell, your mage, levitate. Who needs to climb a ledge? Anywho, exactly. Now, mind you, we talked about compound effects, the escalation effect, right? So levitate is good. How effective is levitate against high winds? And this is sometimes where you're going to have to adjudicate things on the fly. Like, for example, do you give the wind a DC/strength level? Like, let's say the wind has a DC of 15, like it's basically blowing with a strength of 15. Does the mage then use their intelligence as their attribute instead of strength to maintain themselves levitating instead of being blown away from the mountain or blown into the mountain? My answer would be yes, because I kind of just thought of it off the top of my head. But you might have to adjudicate something like that on the fly. And of course, if any game that has a very robust mechanic to it will always lead you down a very simple and reasonable adjudicative path, right? It's a D20 system. Dungeons and Dragons is a D20 system. You add a modifier to it. That's it, right? Stat versus stat. You add modifiers to it. You roll. You find out what's going on. You set a difficulty. You roll against that and so that can encompass anything, including the idea that maybe a mage who's using levitate or the fly spell being buffeted by high winds, or the druid flying on the back of a giant eagle might have to roll for the giant eagle's dexterity to maintain not being blown away or buffeted by the high winds or the blizzard or something like that. You know what I mean? So again, creating problems but not solutions, and then as the dungeon master, never standing in the way of the players who have come up with solutions and are using the environment maybe to their benefit. For example, the players like, oh, I'm going to use a levitate spell and there's high winds. Oh man, I can't believe, wait a minute. Maybe if we knock some of these bad guys off the cliff, they'll get blown away in the high winds as well. Right? Who's to say that that's not a possibility? And I would absolutely encourage something like that. A matter of fact, there might be some brilliant character. As a player, I might not be smart, but my character might be very brilliant. So I don't have a 17 intelligence, but my sorcerer might have a 17 intelligence. And so the DM might suggest me like, hey, by the way, you do realize that you could actually use this against them. And just, oh, that's right. Yeah, we could do something like that. You know what I mean? So you could have all of those effects happen in and around and laced in between your regions, the region that they're passing by. And of course, we barely talked about caves. We didn't talk about waterfalls and river runoff and the micro environments that happen in and up in the mountain areas, such as lakes rivers. Mudslides are quite a bit different than rock slides. Mudslides not only push are powerful and can entrap people and belongings, but they're also very powerful in that they move whole homes off of their foundations and make them move hundreds of feet or yards away from where they used to be. So a mudslide could literally suffocate or trap a PC, in their waist, and then have them go down the once dry riverbed that now is being flooded by the mountain melt because the spring is coming or something like that. So again, using the idea of foreshadow, using the idea of escalation, static events versus random effects, adding all those things together, putting them in your back pocket, and just making it more viable. So guys, thank you very much for joining me. I will see thee tomorrow. Tomorrow's Future Friday. We'll do the series, and Fat Ninja DM and we're going to have a talk as we partake of this new endeavor with Fantasy Grounds College. Dead Man Storyteller brings up future topic idea, weather. You have spoken and it is done. That's what we'll do next week. So Deadman brought up a topic, and we're going to bring that up. We're going to do that. Arcane, natural weather, lack of weather, predicting weather. Yeah, I like that idea. Let's do that. We're going to do that next week. Vince says, make 100 statement setting. Yeah, a little difficult to do that by video, but I think it's possible to do that. If you guys don't know, the 100 statement setting idea is that you get a number. You basically can use any form of social media that you want. And each person that participates makes a statement or a few sentences, a truth about the setting. The limitation is you cannot disregard, edit, or erase any statement that came before it. You cannot say that it doesn't exist. Now, of course, you could say rumor has it, or there's a region that people predict, or there's a myth about, or in the past there was. Like, you could kind of circumvent that a little bit. But the idea is that every single person that participates comes up with a true statement, and you try to reach 100 statements about a setting, and you build it organically. Oh, man. Hey, baby, you too. Thank you. Love you. Have a great day. Bye. Ricker says, for some reason, I think DBJ wakes up earlier than me when I'm on vacation. Yeah, like I said, this is like my morning coffee, so this really helps me get my day going. So, guys, thank you so much. There are some things coming down the pipe. This channel is not moving, and I'm not canceling it, but there are, like, for example, we're going to have more releases in the Call of Cthulhu game. We're taking our cinematic environs. They are completely rewritten for Call of Cthulhu, so they have modern elements to them. All this is found on a Drive-Thru RPG. So, for example, we have our Arctic Reach book for cinematic environs. Well, we also have our Desert Waste book for we have our cinematic environs for Call of Cthulhu, using the Arctic Reaches and the Desert Waste so far, and adventures that are related to each of them. The winter one is called The Pipeline. The desert one is called Highway to Hell. So now each one is completely rewritten. Like, we didn't just change the rules over. They're completely rewritten for vehicles and modern day and radios and airplanes and that kind of thing. So take a look at that if you're someone involved in Call of Cthulhu. I'm the Dungeons and Dragons guy. Alex is the Call of Cthulhu guy. So it's basically taking the idea that I came to them with, and then taking that and going, man, we could really do something else with this. Also, we're going to have merchandise, and my Patreon page is going to open up and all that kind of business. So you're going to see some of that. You guys have been supportive of me this entire time. Don't act like you think that I'm telling you that you need to support those things in any kind of like financial matter. I'm just letting you know that if you see that, you're like, oh, DBJ didn't bring that up, because I'm really terrible at promotion. So self-promotion. So guys, thank you very much. Got to head off to work, but I will see thee tomorrow. Yeah. Ricker said, did I hear patron? Yeah. Yeah. I've been like 2 years ago or something. Someone suggested that I have my own, like, have a Patreon to support whatever, but I don't know. It's the turmoil that I believe every creator goes through, and the idea of, like, how do you attach a monetary value to something that you're already doing anyway, that you love doing, in which case you kind of have to lead that into the hands of other people who may feel that they want to support you in what you're doing. So I can't tell you when it'll happen. I don't know, a week or two from now or what have you, where it's going to go live. I mean, the page actually exists. I just haven't made it public. So whatever the case may be. Yeah, it's out there. So yes, that's the turmoil I'm going through. And it took me about 2 years to kind of like dig into it and figure out what it's about. I'll probably have like $1 and $2 level, and that'll be it, or something, or whatever the case may be. So guys, thank you very much. I really appreciate the fact that those of you in the States, either waking up early or heading to work or going to bed after work, are with me. Ricker says, awesome. Then I know where to move some of my RPG patronage. Thanks. Yeah, you guys know me. I try to be as very. I've used the term digital pizza. It's like us sitting around a table. That's just me, off the cuff. Maybe it behooves me to be a little bit more professional, because the things we talk about for an hour off the top of the head is the kind of thing I do when I'm not online over weeks to narrow it down to something that is presentable to give to the public, right? Like I'm leaning away from you guys temporarily here. Like here's a mountain book I was talking about, and the you know Arctic lands, and each of these regions, it's just as much like it's like how do you let people know how passionate you are about something? And I guess the only way to do that is to just express it and then hope people feel it and understand, even if they don't agree with me. I don't expect people to agree with me, especially you, Rickard. We think differently, but we're on the same page, if you understand what I'm saying. So yeah, that's why I do what I do. And I'm an old dude. I don't get the sit down and game like I really want to. And that's kind of a difficulty for me. So Rickard says, real talk, as much as this is your morning coffee, this helps me re-energize for another 4 hours of work. Vince says, I wish I could join you again live. A bit sadly, it is not possible during weekdays. Yeah, Vince, you're always welcome. I understand. Real life, man. Real life happens. And again, like, I hope what I'm putting out there is like, maybe there's somebody out there who just has like writer's block. You're like, man, I really don't have this. I don't have an idea for an adventure. I just need something to jog loose the blockage in the head. And then hopefully listening in or watching or you're on the train or you're driving in the car, or you're at work and you have headphones on and you're like, oh, I didn't think about that thing, that one little thing, man. Oh, great. Master, check out and subscribe to Master the Game, Gaming with Juice. He put a comment from yesterday where he's like, man, DBJ, like, wow, there's some great ideas. And maybe he was thinking of something as well. So again, we're part of a larger community. So check him out as well. Check out Master the Game, the YouTube channel. Go over, like, share, subscribe to that channel as well. He's been in the game for a long time and deserves to have a lot more patronage on his page as well. So yeah, there isn't a limit to our creative endeavors and the people that are around us as well. So guys, everyone have a great one. I got to get out of here. Love you guys. Bye. See you tomorrow.